Ariana Grande, one of the most recognized voices on the planet, a woman who has been through more public pain than most people could ever imagine, was targeted. Again, not by a random stranger online. Not by some anonymous account hiding behind a default profile picture, but by someone who does this professionally. Someone who has built an entire career out of tearing people down, and who, according to people who have been watching him closely, is getting worse. And this time, people are saying he went too far. So let's talk about it. Because this isn't just a celebrity gossip story. This is about something much bigger. Something that affects all of us. Let's start here. Johnson is not new to controversy. If you've spent any time in certain corners of the internet, you know the name. He built his platform by going after public figures, usually women, with what he calls commentary and what a lot of other people call something else entirely. He frames it as criticism. He frames it as truth-telling. He says he's just asking questions, just pointing things out, just holding people accountable. But here's the thing about framing. It doesn't change what's actually happening. And what's actually been happening, especially recently, has started to look a lot less like commentary and a lot more like a targeted campaign. Now, Ariana Grande has been in the public eye since she was a teenager. She's survived tragedy in ways that would break most people. She's been scrutinized for her relationships, her voice, her body, her choices, her fashion, her silence, and her speaking up. There is almost nothing about her life that hasn't been picked apart under a microscope by someone somewhere on the internet. She's used to criticism. She's used to noise. But this was different. What Johnson put out was not just a negative opinion. It wasn't a fair critique. People who watched it described it as relentless, calculated, personal in a way that felt less like commentary and more like, and this is the word multiple people used, an attack. He went after her character. Her relationships. Things that, honestly, have nothing to do with her music or her artistry, or anything that would typically fall under the umbrella of fair game for a public figure. He presented speculation as fact. He took moments out of context and built a narrative around them that painted her in the worst possible light. And his audience ate it up. That's the part that should scare you. Because Johnson doesn't just speak, he mobilizes. His comment sections don't just have opinions. They have coordinated energy. People who watch him don't just form views, they act on them. And in the past, when he's gone after someone, that person has felt it. In their mentions, in their emails, in ways that go beyond the digital screen and start to bleed into real life. That's the pattern. And that pattern, according to people watching closely, is escalating. Here's where it gets really uncomfortable. This isn't the first time he's done something like this. If you go back through his content, and there is a clear thread. He identifies a target. He builds a case. He releases the video. He watches the chaos unfold. And then, when people push back and say he went too far, he plays innocent. He says he was just asking questions. He says people are too sensitive. He says free speech. And then he does it again. But bigger. The target changes. The intensity doesn't. It only grows. So why Ariana and why now? Some people think it's because she's been in the spotlight a lot lately. New projects, new conversations, new visibility. When someone is visible, they become a target. And when a troll of this level decides to focus that energy, it's not random. It's strategic. Others think this is about engagement. Videos that go after beloved public figures, especially women with massive, passionate fan bases, generate enormous amounts of reaction. And on platforms that reward reaction above everything else, that reaction equals money. It equals growth. It equals power. Which brings us to the uncomfortable truth sitting at the center of all of this. Every time someone clicks on his videos to be outraged, every time someone shares his content to warn others, every time someone argues in the comment section, convinced they're fighting back, the algorithm sees engagement. And the algorithm doesn't care why you clicked. It just knows you did. So what do you do with that? That's the question people are wrestling with right now in real time. Because on one hand, silence feels like surrender. It feels like letting him win without a fight. But on the other hand, the louder the response gets, the more it feeds the machine. Ariana's team has not publicly responded. Ariana herself has stayed quiet, at least as of what we know. And honestly, that might be the smartest move. Because someone like Johnson when feeds on reaction. A non-response is the one thing he can't use. But her fans? They are not staying quiet. And here's where it gets interesting, because the response from her fan base has been massive. Not just emotional, but organized. People are reporting the content. People are going back through his history and documenting the pattern. People are calling out sponsors. People are using the very same tools he uses: visibility, organization, momentum, and turning them around. Whether that works, whether platforms take action, whether anything actually changes, that remains to be seen. But here's what we do know. This is not an isolated incident. Johnson represents something that is growing in the online space, a category of creator that has found a formula for profiting off of hate and has refined that formula to a disturbing level of effectiveness. He's not the only one, but he might be one of the most dangerous because he's smart about it. He stays just inside the lines most of the time. He's learned exactly how far he can push before a platform steps in. And every time he pushes and nothing happens, he learns he can push further. That's the escalation. That's the danger. And the fact that he chose someone as high profile as Ariana Grande this time, that's not an accident. That's a signal. It's him saying, I can go after anyone. It's him testing limits. It's him daring the internet to stop him. The question now is whether anyone will. Because if the answer is no, if this just becomes another news cycle that fades in a week, another thing that gets talked about and then forgotten, then the next target is already being chosen. The next video is already being planned.